The courtroom was packed, too tense. Judge Harrison strode in like a king, robes swishing, gavel in hand. His eyes scanned the room, settling with obvious disdain on the back row. There she sat, 15 years old, a black girl with a calm, unreadable expression. Notebook balanced neatly on her lap, fingers tapping lightly, eyes sharp, observing every movement, every smirk, every arrogance-filled gesture from the bench. Judge Harrison sneered under his breath. "Who let her in here?" The lawyers didn't notice. The jury didn't notice. The spectators barely glanced. But he did. And that smirk, the one he wore like armor, would vanish faster than anyone could imagine. He assumed she was a nuisance, a distraction, someone to be mocked. He didn't know her story. He didn't know the truth behind that steady gaze. Her father wasn't in plain sight yet. But when the truth came out, when everyone realized who she was really defending, the courtroom would freeze. Smirks would die, laughter would vanish, and Judge Harrison would learn one lesson forever. Never underestimate the power of a girl who knows the law and who inherited it from the highest authority in the land. The Oakwood District Court smelled of polished wood, old paper, and tension. Every chair creaked under anxious spectators. Lawyers whispered, checking notes. But all attention should have been on the girl. 15-year-old Amara Johnson sat in the back row. Small, unassuming, yet her eyes carried a weight that made even seasoned lawyers glance twice. She wasn't here for herself. She wasn't here for attention. She was here to defend someone far greater than herself. Her father, until now, a mystery, to the courtroom, was none other than Justice Elijah Johnson, a Supreme Court justice whose rulings shaped the nation. He had always been known for his calm composure and unwavering principles. But today, he would watch as his daughter faced a man who thought power came from intimidation. Judge Harrison slammed the gavel, making the courtroom jump. "Order! Order in my court!" His smirk carried an arrogance that could make seasoned lawyers flinch. But Amara didn't flinch. She tapped her notebook lightly, almost like a heartbeat, calm, precise, deliberate. "You're too young," Harrison muttered under his breath. "You shouldn't even be in here." Amara's lips curled slightly, a hint of a smile, though her eyes remained steel. "Maybe. But someone has to remind you that the law doesn't belong to those who mock it, sir," the courtroom whispered. The lawyers stared. The jury leaned in. No one had ever seen a child, especially one barely 15, speak with such authority. And all the while, her father, seated quietly at the back, watched silently. Every detail, every word, every move. The law was in her hands today, and he had taught her well. Judge Harrison pointed at her. "Sit down, girl. You are not part of this case." Amara rose slowly, every movement precise. "I am part of this case, Your Honor," she said clearly. "Because the truth cannot be ignored, even by someone who thinks their robes give them power." A gasp ran through the courtroom. Lawyers exchanged bewildered glances. Even the spectators shifted uncomfortably. You're just a child," Harrison barked. "Do you even understand procedure?" "I understand enough to see when justice is being twisted," Amara replied. She opened her notebook, revealing carefully highlighted documents, precedents, and court rulings. "And I will not allow the truth to be buried because of ego." Harrison laughed, sharp and cruel. "Who taught you this? Your father? Oh, wait. He's not here, is he?" Amara's eyes gleamed. "He is here. And while you mock me, he's watching every moment." For the first time, a ripple of tension passed through the courtroom, a man's presence unseen but undeniable. Harrison's confidence wavered slightly, though he tried to hide it behind a cough. Amara began presenting her points, meticulously and logically. She cited misapplied procedures, overlooked precedents, and the arrogance in Harrison's rulings. Every word cut like a scalpel. The courtroom leaned in. The jury exchanged incredulous looks. Even the clerk's fingers paused on the paperwork. "You are wasting everyone's time," Harrison snapped. But the room no longer echoed with laughter. It echoed with attention. Amara's voice rang louder, firmer. "Your Honor, the law isn't for mocking. The law isn't for intimidation. It is for justice, and justice is blind to ego, age, or arrogance." The courtroom went silent. Everyone, spectators, lawyers, jury, was captivated by this 15-year-old girl dismantling an experienced judge's authority with nothing but truth and logic. And then, a subtle movement. At the back of the room, a man rose slowly, tall, composed, commanding. Justice Elijah Johnson, the Supreme Court Justice. Her father. Harrison's face paled. A bead of sweat ran down his temple. The courtroom froze. Amara turned to him briefly, nodding subtly. He gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. Approval, pride, recognition. The tide had shifted. Judge Harrison's gavel trembled in his hand. He had tried everything. Mockery, intimidation, barking orders. But nothing worked. Every word Amara spoke cut through his arrogance like a knife. Every citation, every calm explanation, stripped him of authority in front of the room. "Young lady," Harrison snapped, voice shaking just slightly, "you may have memorized some procedures, but a judge does not get lectured by a child." Amara didn't flinch. Her eyes, unwavering, met his with the clarity of someone who had prepared every detail. "A judge is not above the law, sir," she said. "And today I am not lecturing. I am reminding you of it." The courtroom went silent. Every eye locked on her. Even the jury leaned forward, gripping their seats, waiting for her next words. Harrison's smirk vanished. His confident posture cracked. Amara walked closer to the bench, flipping open her notebook with deliberate precision. "This folder contains procedural errors in your ruling, past cases where precedent was ignored, and evidence that was dismissed unfairly. Every point proves the bias in your judgment today." A whisper ran through the courtroom. "Who is this girl?" one lawyer muttered. Amara ignored them. Her gaze was locked on Harrison. "You assumed my father would be intimidated. You assumed I would be quiet. You assumed you were untouchable. Assumptions have consequences." Harrison slammed the gavel. "Enough! Sit down before I hold you in contempt." She took a deep breath, calm, controlled. "I will not sit down. Not when the truth is being ignored. Not when arrogance overshadows justice." Suddenly, a hush fell over the room. All eyes shifted to the back. A man had stood, tall, imposing, calm. Justice Elijah Johnson, her father. Supreme Court. Justice. His presence alone commanded attention, yet he didn't speak. He simply watched, his eyes fixed on Harrison. Harrison's face drained of color. His voice faltered. You can't—" "Watch closely," Amara said softly, but every word carried authority. "Justice does not belong to you, sir. It belongs to the law. And it is blind to ego, titles, or intimidation." The room felt like it held its breath. The murmurs had stopped. The spectators froze. The lawyers leaned in. Even the clerk paused mid-note. Harrison's gavel shook in his hand, powerless against the weight of truth and the presence of the Supreme Court Justice. Amara laid down a final document, a precedent that directly contradicted Harrison's ruling. "Here is the law, in black and white. The choice is yours. Correct the mistake, or be held accountable for ignoring it." Harrison looked at the folder, looked at her, looked at the man behind her. His arrogance crumbled. He tried to speak, but no words came. The courtroom erupted, not in chaos, but in stunned silence. The tide had turned. The girl, barely 15, had dismantled a judge's authority with truth, precision, and courage. Harrison sank into his chair, defeated, trying to mask the humiliation with a cough. The courtroom exhaled collectively. Justice had been quietly restored. Amara returned to her seat. Her father approached, pride visible in his gaze. You were incredible," he whispered. "I never doubted you for a second." She smiled faintly, still composed. "It wasn't me alone. It was truth. And the law." Spectators approached, offering congratulations. Lawyers nodded with respect. Even court staff whispered among themselves, sharing astonishment at the young girl who had stood tall in a room full of adults, challenging authority with nothing but facts and courage. News crews outside clamored for interviews. Cameras flashed as Amara and her father stepped onto the courthouse steps. Reporters shouted questions. Amara addressed them calmly. "This isn't about me. It's about justice. It's about holding those in power accountable. Titles and robes don't grant immunity. Justice is for everyone, and it must be fair." The crowd murmured in agreement. Social media exploded. Hashtags celebrating her courage trended. 15 years old, fearless, brilliant, and determined to change the world. Harrison remained inside, the weight of defeat settling on him. His smirk gone, his confidence shattered. He had been reminded that authority alone doesn't make someone just, and in the presence of truth and courage, even the highest titles must bow. Her father hugged her tightly. "You've reminded me why I fight every day," he said. "You've reminded everyone why the law matters." Amara's eyes glistened. "We can all make a difference, Dad. One voice, one choice, one stand." Weeks later, Oakwood District was buzzing. Amara returned to school, still 15, still learning, still growing. But her story had inspired a city. Students whispered in admiration, teachers nodded with respect. Her father continued his work as a Supreme Court justice, but with a renewed pride. He knew the next generation, his daughter, was ready to challenge injustice, stand for truth, and fight without fear. Amara's story became a lesson for everyone. Courage is not loud, it is persistent. Justice does not favor age, race, or gender, it favors truth. The courthouse steps, once a place of intimidation, became a symbol. The image of a 15-year-old girl standing before a powerful judge, unwavering, had been captured in photos, videos, and hearts. Judge Harrison quietly submitted an appeal, knowing he had been outmatched not by a seasoned lawyer, but by a young girl armed with knowledge, preparation, and unshakable courage. Amara continued her studies, volunteered at legal clinics, mentored younger students, every day reminding herself and the world that justice is not inherited, it is earned. One small girl, one quiet voice, had changed the course of a courtroom. And in that change, she reminded everyone that the bravest acts are sometimes performed by those who are underestimated the most. Courage does not need permission. Justice does not ask for permission. And no one, no matter how powerful, can stop someone determined to uphold the truth. As the sun set over Oakwood, Amara walked home with her father. The courthouse loomed behind them, silent but forever changed. And in that silence, a powerful message echoed. Never underestimate the power of truth and the courage of a young heart.